Welcome to the Growth Whisperers Podcast, where everything we talk about is about building enduring great companies. Those are companies that people build and continue to build for decades and decades and decades, and resources to help them and their teams to do this thing. Enduring great companies, that's what we're about. And I'm here today with my co-host, Brad Giles, as I am every week. And Brad, welcome to the show today. Today is a very special day, like really special day. Do you want to tell us about that, Brad?
Well, today's episode 52, 1 year. It is our 1 year anniversary. We're so happy to have made it to 1 year. It's great. 1 year talking about building enduring great businesses. Every week for 1 year we've been doing this, and we started in the heat of the pandemic. This was really a tough time, and now we're enduring.
Yes, we are. And like a lot of things that started as an experiment. Hey, let's try this and give it a shot. We've been enjoying it, bringing our brains together. It'll accumulate or whatever the word. It'll come together in a book and lots of other great things. So yeah, it's our 52nd episode. Made it to a year. Persistence pays. And So today, before we get into our topics today, Brad, what's your word or your phrase of the day? Where you're at today?
Yeah, Joey Chestnut. Joey Chestnut.
Obviously.
Right. So you're not Joey Chestnut, to be more specific. So according to Major League Eating, the World Federation on Eating, the world champion, the undisputed world champion is Joey Chestnut at eating records. So Joey's eaten 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes. And if
you do. Yes.
And they have that competition on Coney Island in New York. And I think he's also eaten 32 Big Macs is the other world record that he holds, right? But when Joey hit 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes, okay, to give you an idea of just how far ahead he is, the number 2 person is almost flaking out at about 45, 46. Okay, so Joey is by far and away the world leader in consuming hot dogs within 10 minutes. But my point is that you're not Joey Chestnut. We talk about all of these things. We talk about purpose, execution, data. We talk about building a great leadership team and hiring the A players. And you can't...
Are we going to start talking about eating hot dogs? Are we going to start talking about hot dogs?
No, we were just talking about that. That's what I'm talking about now. And so... You are not Joey Chestnut, right? You can't consume at a rate. The average person cannot even consume at a rate of the people who are losing, let alone Joey Chestnut. So you've got to be realistic in the manner in which you will consume, in which you will introduce these concepts into your business and execute them and get them to stick. So you're not Joey Chestnut. There is only one Joey Chestnut who can eat 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes.
And so what you're saying is you have to pace yourself when you're implementing things in your business.
Yes.
Because most people can't consume that much, whether it's information or changes or other things that quickly.
Yeah. And you know what people say? Like, I want to get all of this stuff in right away. It's also cool. It's also awesome. Yeah, but you can't because you're not Joey Chestnut.
Right. And if we try to consume stuff like Joey Chestnut, only half of it's going to get down and then it's all going to come out and there will be no net in the system.
Well,
quickly, the system will eject it very quickly.
It just won't work. Yeah. So
I love it. Joey Chestnut.
Yeah, you've got to pace these things, and you've got to, it's not only about doing it, but it's just accepting, like, we can only consume this content. We can only implement this content so quick. And you may feel that that's, you're not happy with that because you want to get it all done. but it just doesn't work that way.
It is. And I was talking with another entrepreneur last week and talking about this, about phasing things in slowly in their business so they get solid and become excellent versus layering in a bunch of stuff that turns to garbage real fast. That is awesome. So Joey Chestnut. Well, that kind of leads to my word of the day, which is masters, interestingly. And I'm just reflecting on the past week on some amazing people in my world that are absolute masters. And I was thinking about the guy that I traded around on a couple cars, and this guy makes it so easy. Mm-hmm. He makes it incredibly easy. His name's Core. He's so easy to deal with. He's fair, and he just makes it like frictionless to make the changes that you want to make. And another, contractor that I'm working with on a project, and again, just making it so easy. Absolute master. Both of these guys have done it probably hundreds of times. And just how when you work with masters and I think all around my life, I'm surrounded by masters on many, many different things. So yeah, dealing with masters, people that are excellent. It's easy. It makes things really, really easy, which I'm sure will come into our theme for today. And by the way, those masters in your Oxygen Master First, we call them 14X advisors. People who have been there and done that 14 times before, i.e. they know these things like the back of their hand. They're not making it up, and they're not on the bottom of their learning curve. So today, speaking of Joey Chestnut, hot dog eating champion, and masters who make things easy and even look easy, like Joey Chestnut would also do. What are we talking about today, Brad?
Yeah, well, because it's episode 50, 51, we 52
maybe
52 maybe. We're talking about why would you want to build an enduring great company? Why? There are lots of people out there who think that the only option that you can have is build a company and then sell it. And then we're kind of saying there's another alternative. There's an option out there that you may not have considered, which is building a company for the purpose of the long term, building a company and thinking about it over a longer period of time, which, it may seem quite strange to some people. So today, being our 1 year anniversary, we're going to flesh that out and see where it takes us.
Yeah, and there's so much thinking out there of this kind of get rich quick and build it and sell it. It's the common narrative out there in the business world, and we just want to share we have a very different view. And there's circumstances where someone selling their business could make sense. But we're obsessed with, and we work mostly with people who want to keep building their businesses for decades or generations. That's what this podcast is all about. We have some others that don't, but the core of our passion, especially in this show, is about that. So the title is, why you should build your business like you're never going to sell it, right? And even if you sell it, building it like you never are going to sell it also gives you an advantage. And one of the things we were talking was preparing for the show, like Brad and I were having some pretty passionate debates about this, because it really makes us mad. It makes us frustrated when we see people sell their business that we think don't need to. And we'll get into some of the details. And there's the intent is just to open up people's view of what's possible versus that common narrative of you should build it and sell it. And especially, as we get into this piece around, if your business is really connected to a purpose, it's like, can you really even sell that business? But we'll get into that today. Anything you want to add in there, Brad, before we get into our points?
Well, just that you don't need to sell. I saw a comment online, I would say within the last few weeks, and this person, let's say a thought leader, for want of a better term, they said the reason that you have a business is to sell it. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that for some people
it's
that might be
view.
true.
It's a view that some people have. It's not a foundational truth of the universe like gravity, right?
Yes.
It's an opinion, it's a view, it's an option, but there's other perspectives.
And that's the point. That when that is the only reason that everyone thinks that a business exists, it's not representative of all of the views. And we've got to think that some people want to build and some people want to keep and some people want to sell. But yeah, there is a case to be made for the other side. So let's dig into that today. So that really flows into the first, I guess, definition. Normally we'll sort of say, well, what are we talking about here? There's a commonly held belief that people are in business to make money and build a business to sell it and make a pot of money. Again, that works for some people. There's an industry around that and it works very well. And what we're saying is, if you take a long-term mindset, you may think differently. If it's your understanding, your belief that, I enjoy the business, I enjoy what I'm doing on a day-to-day, and this is the difference that I'm making in the world, it can really make a big difference to you mostly. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, it's as we started with, is that there's this belief that you build it to sell it. And a lot of the companies that we work with won't sell. I've got a company in the Middle East that I've worked with for years, India and all around the world, companies like they selling is just not even on their radar, right? And in some cases, they may have some other shareholders in the business or partners or other things, but they just want to keep on going. They keep on building, but they all have one thing in common, is that there is a purpose beyond profit in the business for all of them. And it's not just about the money, although they generate great money normally, they generate great profits. But there's a love and a passion and a connection they have to this thing that they've built and continue to build. And commonly what you see for people, I see a lot of people that contact me that are kind of out of frustration, that want to sell, because they're kind of at the end of the rope. Like the business ain't fun. And we'll get into some of that other stuff later on, but it's because it's causing them more pain than it is giving them, joy, right? There's a frustration and a bunch of other stuff that we'll get into it. So that kind of takes us into our second point. So the first point is, see the other alternative outside the narrative of, when you start a business, you got to know your exit. When you start a business, you got to know your exit point and how much you want to get for it. That's a view. Or when you start a business, the alternative is, you got to know your purpose and the difference you want to make and rally people around that.
And what return you want to make. So rather than saying only your purpose, or rather than saying how much you're going to sell for, say, I want to make $1 million a year, or whatever number that might be that meets your requirements, or $10 million a year, whatever. The point is that just knowing that there is an alternative is the first step. This is not the only option that's available.
Yep. So the second thing I want to talk about is, what is your motivation for selling if you're thinking about it? And again, maybe it is the right decision for you. We're just having you see the non-traditional perspective of not selling. So, and often when we talk to people, it's that, they for whatever reason, they don't like their business anymore. Like there's it's not joy when they're going to work on their business. Sometimes it's the team. Sometimes, the competitive environment's gotten real rough. Sometimes they've gone through a real rough patch financially and, had problems with their banks or other things.
Maybe they're just burnt out.
And maybe they're just cooked. And sometimes because of what's going on, they can't see how they're going to win in the future and they lose faith. Yeah. And there's all kinds of reasons, and, you dig into them and they're all common. Like, leading a business isn't the easiest thing in the world, right? You can get a job working for your local government. It'd be a heck of a lot easier, but this is meant to be a big challenge, and ideally a very rewarding challenge, both for your spirit and financially as well. So the main thing is, no matter what your motivation, really understand, why is it I'm wanting to sell? Like, what is the generally pain point that's making me want to sell? And consider alternatives. Like, consider other things that could help that. So for example, one person I know that's going to sell their business, they're just sick of the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
They're just sick of the pressure that lands on their shoulders. Well, if you have too much pressure on your shoulders, that means that there's not enough pressure on your team's shoulders, and or you don't have a strong enough team. That means you're probably still in the chapter in my book, Your Oxygen Mask First, called Make Yourself Useless. Well, unfortunately, you're probably still too useful. And if you're too useful, that gets tiring. You need to have the team members who are in the useful position, and you are in the strategic role and becoming more useless.
And an interesting question around that subject is, well, what if you weren't allowed to sell? What if there was some government mandate that said you must own this business, and you were forced, you weren't able to?
Great question.
What would you do different? I'd definitely fire Rob. Rob just is, that'd be the first thing.
And then fire Rob, then do it. Get on it. Yes.
And then Tina and that. And you know that customer ABC Corp? I would definitely get rid of them if I was forced to own this business. Well, then why don't you do it? So understanding that the constraint of freedom is not really perhaps your best friend. And if you could introduce the idea of a different constraint, if I was forced to own this business, how would I run it differently? Can actually get you to illuminate the path of what you really want to do.
And our point 7 tonight takes that into account of how do you make this thing amazing again if it's not. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. And maybe you want to sell it because you got something else you want to do with the money. Maybe you want to go and do a charitable foundation and channel your energies there. There's lots of reasons, but the point is truly understand it. And if it's a point of pain, is there a different approach that you could take? I've almost always there is. And even if it's, if you're mentally cooked, which burnout we deal with a lot, you might need a break. You might need a sabbatical, but
well, maybe your debt level's too high. Well, then you need to work down the debt or refinance it. But the point is, understand what is the motivation for you wanting to sell. That's beyond the cash.
Right. And exactly. Cool. So then the next thing, and this is the one that really gets us, because we have a lot of faith in people's abilities, and we've seen how people can take businesses and scale it and improve it, because we do it every day. We've been doing it for a long time. It's very simple to us. And I know easy to say, hard to do sometimes, but you really got to see how that lump of cash you're going to get, whether it's 3 or 5 or 7 or 14 times your profit or your EBITDA, whatever it is, you got to see how that can actually be in a steal of a deal you're given to someone, because over the next decade, you could easily have all that cash go into your personal bank account the same way if you sold it, and you still own the asset, and it's probably worth 2, 3, 4 times as much if you keep building it. So it's basically, normally you're selling at a massive discount of the future value of your business, if you believe in the future value of your business. And often you might not, but what's possible, it's whatever you sell it for is crumbs compared to what it could be worth if you continue to scale it and improve it and grow it over the next decade or two.
And so a part of the concept here could be short-term gain, i.e. selling today, could equal long-term pain, or equally an opposite, short-term pain could equal long-term gain. That simple phrase can apply so often. And what we're saying is, if you were to go through the pain of actually not selling, could you actually get a bigger gain in the long term? Or how long would it take you to realize that? Now, in some cases, someone's going to come in with such a large check that it makes your eyes water just to see it, right? And the humanness of that situation, we would probably potentially say, yeah, you've got to go for that. That opportunity is never coming up again. And that may be an absolutely legitimate path. If someone comes to you with, let's say, crazy money, but
then what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Because you're selling, if you're really deeply passionate about you're selling your soul. It's like you're selling off a piece of what you're doing. And then you got to go find another place to express your soul and your purpose in life, which could be awesome. Or it may not.
Which could be
I'll give you an
awesome.
example.
Yeah,
one of my clients that I worked with actually, I just did an interview on his podcast last week. Actually, his name's Nigel Bennett. He has a company called AquaGuard, and probably close to 17, 18 years ago, we started together. Anyways, he didn't like his business at all. Turns out he had a partnership problem. And he talked about, and this is in my book, but he put his hand on the doorknob and he felt like he was getting electrocuted every time he went into his own damn office. Hated it. Wanted to sell it, tried to sell it. Anyways, long story short, 18 years later, that thing is an excellent business. He's got his third person he tried as president turned out, which was a long-term guy that grew up in the business who became an excellent president. Awesome company. He's still connected to his purpose around protecting water. He's involved in helping it. Plus, he's got freedom to do other things, and he's living a spectacular life. Spectacular. So in the end, he choose to keep it and let it build. And it's given a great opportunity to his president, Cameron, who's doing a great job. And it's turned out like it couldn't have turned out better for him. And this kind of ties us back into our next point 4, is ideally your business is a platform for your purpose. Yeah. Like the difference you want to make. If it's just a platform for profit, we understand why you probably want to sell it, because you probably don't like it that much. But if you find a platform for your purpose, something you deeply care about, and you feel that intrinsic reward that you get connected to through your business, and you can bring it to life through your business, and whatever it happens to be, there's no feeling like that. And that's why I know some of these people can't sell these things, because they truly enjoy it. So ideally it's a platform for your purpose. And if it's not, you might consider looking this direction.
And that's why we talk about building enduring great businesses, because in an enduring great business, you can fully self-actualize your purpose. You can fully build what you want to do. You can really follow your passion and create the vehicle for you to live out what you really want to do, the difference that you really want to make in the world. And yes, the profit is incredibly important. Having said that, it's also important to self-actualize. That's Maslow's hierarchy right at the top.
Yeah.
Self-actualizing.
And profit's important, but at a certain point, it's not enough, right? But when you have profit and purpose, man, that leads you to a great experience, and obviously helping to build a great company. And you were talking about Tony Hsieh up front from Zappos, Brad. You were sharing that example of how he sold to Amazon, and maybe you continue with that story that you were sharing and how that ties into this.
So Tony hated coming to work, as your friend with the water company did. He was at a business where, I may disrespect the story, but I'll do it with a smile on my face. He didn't like coming to work, and didn't love the team, didn't love the product, and really just every Monday was like, oh God, I got to go back to that work again. So he sold that for north of $200 million. I think he sold it to Microsoft, his first business, and then reset, and then thought, I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to build the business that I love to work in, the one that's going to make the kind of difference. And it was around happiness. That's his thing. That's his theme, right? Zappos obviously being the company. Spent a few years building that. And then actually, I think he sold that for over $1 billion to Amazon. But part of that deal, the only way that he would do that deal was that he got to continue to run it with full autonomy in exactly the way that he wanted to. Now, terribly, unfortunately, Tony recently passed away last year. But in terms of what we're talking about here, building an enduring great company, what's important is that the sale still happened. The first sale happened so that he could build his second business. And then he transacted on the second business, but still continued to build an enduring great company in Zappos. And that was him fulfilling, his purpose. And so it's important to consider that the transactions can still apply in some circumstances, but what we're saying is the purpose is so important, and not regretting that as you age.
So Tony basically was very smart and got himself the double dip. He got the cash benefit, and whoever else had stock options got it. So he got the cash. So he got the cash, and he got the purpose piece because he set himself up with the autonomy to continue to run based on purpose. And it was a very smart deal that he did there from both perspectives, purpose and profit. So the whole idea is that, the best businesses do feed your soul in some way, and it helps to manage some of the pain that you have as you're building. It's not always easy. And look at your business. How is it feeding your soul? And, what could make it better? How do you bring that purpose back to life, or make it more powerful, or to your own benefit and to the people around you? And so the next point, number 5, is like, and kind of inspired by Tony, and maybe it's 4.5. But look at where your personal return comes from, your intrinsic reward, your satisfaction in the business beyond money. And sometimes it gets lost. Like sometimes we get so caught up in it that it's just, you forget what really makes you tick. And, referencing my stuff, I know you've done stuff on this as well, Brad, but there's a piece in your Oxygen Mask First. We have you identify your sweet spot. That's where you do your best work that energizes you and you love doing it.
Yeah.
The combinations, and a lot of times, talk to senior leaders and CEOs, they're not doing their sweet spot. They're actually hating their damn job. Yeah. Never mind the business. What they're doing, they are getting personally drained by what they do, not personally energized. And you often got to reconfigure it, and you got to restructure it. So I've got another CEO that went from 7 direct reports to 3. Game changer, absolute game changer. Another CEO that had the responsibility for legal still in their hand. They outsourced it. All of a sudden, they love their business probably 20% more because they felt they had to deal with the legal issues and they hated it. They actually made them worse, but that's a whole other story. But it's really dialing it in so that you can get a great intrinsic reward, not necessarily just connected from what the purpose is, but from your daily work and what makes you feel good at the end of the day.
I do a similar exercise, and it's energy up, energy down. So what drains your energy as a leader, as a CEO, and what gives you energy? It's a pretty simple kind of a thing, but okay, why can't we get you to offload the things that drain your energy and get more of the things that give you energy?
Actually, it's we have to, not why can't you? Like, we have to, otherwise you're gonna bonk as a leader, and you need to be able to be inspired and doing your best, and have permission to build the team around you the way you want, so that you can enjoy the game. So it's like if you were playing, soccer, we would call it, or footy or football, as you guys would call it. The little round ball you chase around the field. If you like to be a forward, but you're a goalkeeper, that's not going to be fun. And if you're a goalkeeper, or vice versa, like, you got to play the position you want and play the sport you want, because maybe you want to play badminton or croquet, or you want to surf. So in our roles, we often get lost, and we personally don't get to feel good about our work.
We'd call it soccer, but Clayton Christensen said that in organization, people look to the corner office, to the CEO's role, and they think the great intrinsic value comes from having the power, from being able to make the decisions, from having the big salary. But then he said, once you get there, after a while, you recognize that The great reward isn't the power or isn't the decisions. It's growing the people around you. It's having a team and getting the team to become better versions of themselves. That's the great intrinsic personal return on investment that you get.
Yes. So if point 5 is making sure that the job that you're doing is the job you want to do, how do you tweak your role to really work for you? Point 6 is about investing yourself and learning. A lot of the leaders that continue to enjoy and thrive in their roles continue to learn a lot of stuff, and it helps them to, 1, navigate and make better decisions, and 2, grow themselves. And i.e. the perspective you just shared, Brad, about almost basically becoming the coach versus the best player, right?
Yeah.
That's a shift that a lot of leaders need to make, but you need to learn about that and study and read about other great leaders that did it and how they did it and what helped them to do it. But it's a lot of leaders, again, that want to sell, that especially when they bonk and they're tired or they lose faith, they often haven't spent enough time learning, and they need to open up their horizons and see more and talk to different. And sometimes, they need a coach. They need some new mentors. They need to go take a 3-day executive education program with a bunch of other entrepreneurs, or do, lots of different things, and do one of those call-in sessions that we do when there's not COVID. But it's whether it's additional help or a guide, or to build their belief or their inspiration or their strategic thinking, or to see new doors they didn't even know existed. Sometimes you really gotta sharpen your own saw and make yourself sharper and more capable.
And so if you're going to build an enduring great business rather than sell a business, you're going to have to invest in yourself. You're going to have to continually stay ahead of the growth curve. You're going to have to be in front of it. And as advisors and coaches, you and I, Kevin, we need to stay ahead of the CEO.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we have to spend so much time learning and growing ourselves. Yeah. And we encourage, the best part is we just had a call last week with all our CEOs, where we invite them all, and people are all sharing their best learnings and best resources of the past year. The great thing is when you work with a bunch of amazing people, they have as many good suggestions as we do. And the tribe or the community supports each other. It's just awesome. We got some awesome ideas that came out of that last session. But we need to do that regularly, not only for energy and sharpness, but to help with our own growth.
So let's move on to number 7. So why should you build an enduring great company rather than maybe sell? Well, why do you want to sell? Maybe you're just burnt out. Maybe you've just had enough. Maybe you think anything is better than this. And so perhaps you just need a reset. Perhaps you need to start with a blank page. And I spoke about this earlier. What if you were forced to keep your business by legislation, by the government, or someone else said, no, you absolutely must keep this business. You are not allowed to sell it. Then how would you run it differently? There was a famous actor, comedian, director called Mel Brooks. And in one of Mel Brooks' movies, he had this famous line where he said, it's good to be king, because the king gets to do whatever he wants. And there was lots of food and ladies around him at that time in the traditional Mel Brooks humor style. But it's good to be king in the context of your own business, because you can actually start with a blank slate. In preparation for our chat today, we were saying one of the reasons that you would sell is because you want to clean out the garbage. Well, why can't you clean out the garbage while you still own it? So you don't like this software, you don't like this team, you don't like that person, you don't like your debt. Well, why can't you
don't like your location, you don't like your business model, you don't like a lot of stuff. And that clean slate blank page exercise is very freeing and powerful. It's just hard for some people. 1, they don't make the time. 2, they might not be comfortable doing it. So even if you go and look at this, a lot of times when we get lost down a path, sometimes you just need to start way over there. So another CEO we work with, his business model is getting commoditized and commoditized and commoditized. And he's been going through some strategic exercises to help him think different perspectives, longer term, big picture. And he's going to take a little slice of the business and go and build it into potentially what would overtake the existing business.
Great.
Right.
Great.
And I've got a few others that have done that, but sometimes you need to do it without constraints and give yourself permission and then go make those changes. And it's almost like if you've got a beautiful old classic car and then you keep repairing it and repairing it and repairing it. Now, you don't need to throw it in the garbage, but you might send it back to the factory, or you might, like some of the high-end brands like Ferrari, you can send a car back to them and they'll restore it. Or you might send it to a restoration shop and go and spend an amount of money that might not make sense, but they will make everything brand new again. It's still that original heritage. It's still got the soul and everything of that original, 1960s, whatever it happens to be, car. But then they rebuild it brand new, fresh. So everything is brand new and fresh and revitalized. And they might even do something they could take it back to its, or modernize it. There's a thing in hot rods in the US called resto mod, where they restore a car and highly modify it and modernize it at the same time. So it looks with all the heritage and everything, but underneath it's like a brand new car.
One of my favorite companies that do that is a company out of Los Angeles, I think, called Singer, Singer.
Correct.
Singer.
Yes. Beautiful Porsches they make.
Yeah, Reimagineering, I think they call it.
Yes.
And they take a Porsche 911 from like 1988 to 1996 or 1995, something like a very select range. And
it's 1990 to 1994. It's called a Porsche 964 that they use as their base. Yes.
And everything is modern. It's the classic look, but they are just absolutely beautiful. So the metaphor, the analogy here is, well, can you do that to your business? If you become sick and tired of the business, can you do that to your business over a 3 to 5 year period? And
can you? And as one of the teams, one of the teams I work with, they said, okay, great, let's just walk out the door and let's walk in as the new buyers of this business, and what will we do to it?
Yeah,
right. Fresh, because a lot of times we're caught up in all the legacy stuff and we don't want to deal with it, but we need to. And normally the exercise we go is, let's go 3 to 5 years in the future. What does winning look like? And then come back, and with no emotional attachment to anything, what would the decisions we'd make be? We make those decisions. Then you go and look at how do you do it in a respectful way, because it involves people. But in many ways you think like your own turnaround expert for your own company. And sometimes they need it. And sometimes it's so refreshing, like a snake shedding its skin, just so refreshing, and it allows you to grow again.
But it comes back to your core purpose. It comes back to, what do you want your legacy to be? What is the difference that you want to make in the world? And, when you retired, or when you were aged, how would you look back and think, I'm so proud of the difference that I made with the people I helped, with the business that we built together. Would a reset, would cleaning out the garbage, would that help you to achieve that?
Yeah. And if we kind of, review this and sum this up, look, if you love your business, if it's a platform for your purpose, and it should be beyond profit's great to follow, and making money is awesome. If it's a platform for your purpose, there's lots of things that you need to do sometimes to make it work, adjusting your role, adjusting the business model, rebuilding things. You should at least be able to have that passion and intention to keep building it, like you're never going to sell it, and that you're going to keep it for decades or generations. And if you did, that may be a separate choice. But thinking about building something spectacular for the long term will get you to make different decisions sometimes than if you're just going to flip it out in a couple of years, right? Because you're building foundations for greatness for the long term. So let's go back and review, Brad. So the main point we're making today is we want people to be aware of this different view where you could build it and never sell it, build it and keep it forever. Because I think it's a travesty. Some people sell that don't need to. And there's the emotional thing where they sell it, get a lump of money, and then they're bored. They want to go back and do it again. Some might be relieved. And then there's then they still need a platform for their purpose. So they have to do something else to be useful and feel fulfilled in this world. So number one, we'll take turns on these, Brad. Keep seeing this enduring alternative, which we're putting on the map. There is an enduring alternative. Build it to keep building it for the long term, like many of our clients do.
And then number two, of course, is understand your motivation beyond the cash as to why you are enamored with selling, why you think I would like to sell. What is that? Because yes, the cash is one thing. What are the other reasons? And then can you look beyond those reasons? Can you say, well, I don't like the team, or I can't see a way that we can win in this business in the future? If that's the case, then maybe you should consider getting some help, coach, an advisor, to help to rectify those things. Because the cash is good, but there is also a case to be made for building an enduring great business.
Yeah, and you can fix anything. Secondly, is see how whatever cash you're going to get, whether it's 3 or 10 times your earnings, how if you continue to run it for a year, you're going to get all of that and more, and that can all go into your pocket if you do things right, or into your charity's pocket, whatever you want. And you still own the asset, which is probably worth at least twice as much by then, minimum, if you do it right. And seeing how that it's financially, it can look like a lot of cash, but it's nothing compared to if you keep building this business and making it better and better.
And then number four is your business is a platform for your purpose, right? When you are leading a purpose motivated or a purpose driven business, it's probably, or more often than not, the thing that you're deeply passionate about. So if the appeal of selling around profit is the main motivation, perhaps your business isn't connected to your own purpose.
Mm-hmm. For 5, look at where your personal return comes from. Where's the intrinsic satisfaction you're getting from your work? Are you in your sweet spot? Are you actually doing work that you love, and you get to spend your day doing the things that you love and make you feel great and create value? Or you need to find a way to restructure your own role, or maybe the role of your teams, or your team members, so you can delegate stuff that you don't love doing and spend more time being inspired in your job.
Number 6, invest in yourself. And maybe you've slipped behind the growth of the business. Maybe it hasn't become as much fun. Maybe you don't have any advisors or mentors or education. And so perhaps you could learn that will help you to keep the business and evolve to build the business that you do love.
And then finally, sometimes you just got to do a clean slate. You got to get a blank page and you got to rebuild this whole thing. And sometimes you can renovate and improve and fix. And sometimes you just got to take the whole thing and start from zero, like sending a classic car to get restored, or completely cleaning the house and gutting the whole house and starting fresh, or knock the damn thing down and rebuild a bigger, better version of it on that amazing foundation that you have. So at the root of it, I hope you get from today is that there's many alternatives than building your business to sell it. And there's a lot of people, which we'll interview in the future, there's a lot of people who have built businesses for decades and generations, and they would never consider selling it because they're getting something different from their businesses that those that sell might not be getting. And again, it's not right or wrong, but we want you to see this view we have of what's possible, because there's so much noise about selling what you build. And I think you miss out on lots of things if you build something great and then give it to someone else to continue growing. So that's been the show for today, Brad. And to everyone, thanks for listening. This has been the Growth Whisperers podcast. I'm Kevin Lawrence here with my co-host, Brad Giles. For Brad, go to evolutionpartners.com.au. And for Kevin, go to lawrenceandco.com, or go to YouTube if you just want to watch the podcast. Hope you have an awesome week, and continue to think about how do you build your company so that you keep on building it, getting lots of intrinsic rewards. Cash rewards as well are wonderful, so that you can continue to grow and do lots of awesome things for other people in the world.